It all starts like a myth, doesn't it? A young man on a chariot being led by the daughters of the sun themselves on a journey to the very gates of night and day. Now, this isn't just some epic tale, it's the opening of one of the most important philosophical works ever written. We are talking about Parmenides, an ancient Greek thinker who's often called the father of metaphysics. He only wrote one thing, a poem we call On Nature. And even though most of it's been lost to time, the pieces we still have completely changed the game for Western philosophy. How? By asking one simple but absolutely world-shattering question. What does it actually mean to be?
So, you might think this is going to be some dry academic text, right? But no, the whole thing is framed as this incredible spiritual journey. The narrator arrives at this massive gate that separates the paths of night and day, and it's there that he's met by a goddess.
And here is where it gets really interesting. The goddess welcomes him and promises to teach him, well, everything. So from this point on, the words you're hearing in the poem aren't really from Parmenides the man. They are a direct revelation from a divine being. And she's about to lay out two very different ways of looking at the world. First up is what she calls the unshaken heart of well-persuasive truth. This isn't just an idea or a theory. This is reality with a capital R, absolute, undeniable, and completely unchanging. The whole logic kicks off with a simple choice. You can think about what is, let's call it being, or you can try to think about what is not, non-being, or nothing. But the goddess argues that you can't actually think about nothing. I mean, try it. Try to wrap your head around nothingness. It's impossible, right? To think of nothing is literally not to think at all. It's a dead-end path. And this all boils down to one of the most foundational lines in all of philosophy. It forges this unbreakable link between our minds and the universe. Basically, if something is thinkable, it must be real. And if it's real, it can be thought about. This single idea, wow, it becomes the bedrock for centuries of metaphysical thought to come.
Okay, so if we follow this logic, what does reality, this thing that is, actually look like? Well, the goddess starts connecting the dots. It couldn't have been created, right? Because where would it come from? Nothing. We just established that's impossible. For the same reason, it can't be destroyed. It can't move or change. It has to be one single, indivisible, eternal, and perfect whole. The best way to picture it is as a perfect sphere, complete and uniform in every direction. But then, right after laying out this absolute, unshakable truth, the goddess completely flips the script. She says, and I'm quoting here, "From here on, learn mortal opinions, listening to the deceitful order of my words." Wait, what? She's about to describe a totally different reality, one that she herself calls deceitful. And the difference is just staggering. On one side, you have the way of truth, this one eternal, unmoving being. And on the other, you have the way of seeming, a world full of different things, a world of constant change, of things being born and then dying, the world that we actually experience every single day. And in this part of the poem, the goddess goes all in. She gives a full-blown explanation of the cosmos, how the sun, the moon, and the earth came to be. She's describing coming to be, the very process that the way of truth just proved was completely illogical and impossible. And this brings us to the great Parmenidean paradox. This is the puzzle that has stumped philosophers for over 2,000 years. Why would you present the unshaken heart of truth and then immediately follow it up with a super detailed explanation of the universe that you've just called a deceitful order? What is going on here? All right, let's play detective for a minute. Scholars have come up with a few major theories to try and crack this code. We're going to walk through 4 of the most common attempts to make sense of this massive contradiction. Okay, interpretation number 1, the most common take. The way of seeming is just wrong, plain and simple. The goddess only teaches it so her student can win arguments. Number 2 is that it's meant to be contradictory, to show how our senses fool us, which just reinforces how right the way of truth is. A third view says they actually are consistent. It argues that there's a difference between absolute nothingness, which is impossible, and just saying something is not something else, like the chair is not green, which is obviously possible. And then there's the most radical idea, that the way of truth is an exercise designed to fail, to show us the limits of pure logic itself. Now, this really complex picture of Parmenides doesn't just make us question his own work, it also forces us to rethink one of the most famous showdowns in the history of philosophy, Parmenides versus Heraclitus.
You know the classic textbook version, right? It's simple. Parmenides is team permanence. All is one, nothing changes. Heraclitus is team flux. Everything flows, you can't step in the same river twice. They're total polar opposites. End of story. But what if that's a huge oversimplification? This alternative translation of Heraclitus' famous line suggests something way more nuanced. It's not just about change. It's about how things stay the same through change. A river only stays a river because new water is constantly flowing. It's a unity of permanence and change together. And when you look closer, Parmenides and Heraclitus start to look surprisingly similar. Both believed in a single underlying reality. One called it being, the other called it the logos. Both thought the opinions of everyday people were deeply flawed, and both, in their own unique ways, saw opposites like night and day as part of a larger whole. And here's the real kicker. They almost certainly never even met or read each other's work. So in the end, this journey to the goddess leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. We love to create these neat little rivalries, permanence versus change, reason versus the senses. But maybe the real journey, the one Parmenides inviting us on, is to look past those simple stories and see the deeper, messier, and maybe more unified reality that's been hiding there all along.